Opposition to the tax credit into a permanently monthly benefit comes from several directions. Lawmakers see it as a program that can encourage people not to work. Several senior citizen advocacy groups are also continuing to urge lawmakers to pass legislation to provide a one-time stimulus check of $1,400. The Senior Citizens League, a nonpartisan organization, gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures for a petition that calls on Congress to deliver a round of $1,400 emergency stimulus checks to assist an estimated 70 million Social Security beneficiaries. In a letter sent to nearly every member of the House and Senate, the group urged legislators to provide an extra $1,400 to people receiving Social Security. Folks, I definitely agree with this, and I think it's a great idea for President Biden to send out more stimulus checks and increase the Social Security benefits before it gets too late. And if you guys agree, tell me in the comments down below. Right now, the legislation is quickly making its way through the Colorado legislature. It would ensure that all 5.8 million people in Colorado will get their refund check. This definitely isn't something that's promised every year, as these extra refunds are only given out if the state has excessive revenue to dispense of. Now, the governor said in an official statement that $400 will help people right now, and gas at $4 a gallon is not good. Groceries costing more, inflation isn't like we have seen in a long time, and because of where the inflation is, we see it in gas and we see it in grocery stores. We see it in the cost of housing. Once the bill passes everybody in the state of Colorado, the extra refunds will go out to 6 to 9 months, earlier than the year prior. The checks are mailed directly to citizens, and the new method of calculating these extra refunds will put more money into income households. Now, the Colorado senator has also said that if the state revenue exceeds inflation and population growth, whatever amount is excess above that needs to be returned to the taxpayer. These refunds will go out 6 to 9 months earlier than years prior. Nancy Pelosi has also said the House Representatives will now consider 2 pieces of legislation to ease the baby formula shortage. Pelosi told ABC News that some Democrats are putting together an appropriations bill that would allow the US to purchase formula overseas. So folks, we have a ton of good news about Social Security benefits, SSI and SSDI. Continue watching this video to not miss out on this. A ton of good news is here, everybody. Be sure to keep watching.
In energy, he placed a moratorium on new drilling, canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, supported canceling oil leases in Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico. And this week, it's reported that he is moving to ease the energy sanctions on Venezuela. The United States of America is the leading producer of oil and gas. It's cleaner and abundant. American workers and companies are eager to start producing more at home. Why are we increasing energy imports from places like Venezuela to offset the disastrous results of shutting down American energy? Republicans have put forward solutions. We've introduced the American Energy Independence from Russia Act. I'm co-leading this legislation with the ranking member of Resources, Bruce Westerman. It would lower cost, protect our national security by flipping the switch and unleashing American energy. Just this week, unfortunately, the Democrats blocked for the 6th time the vote on this legislation. Instead of doing what's necessary to meet energy demands, President Biden and congressional Democrats are distracting by this bill. The American people are not falling for it. President Biden's own energy secretary said, quote, "I'm not sure anyone is saying there's wholesale gouging." The FTC has investigated price gouging in oil and gas markets on and off for over 100 years, and they have found higher prices are tied to supply and demand, not widespread price gouging. Unlike socialist regimes, America has done more to lift people out of poverty and raise the standard of living than any nation in the history of the world. We've achieved this by embracing a system that values.
Governor Gavin Newsom announced this week that an $18.1 billion package aimed at relieving inflation for struggling Californians is set to come. The proposed relief program would include $400 checks to eligible people. Newsom told reporters we enacted the most comprehensive economic stimulus program in the nation last year, getting billions of dollars in immediate relief to millions of Californians, but many folks are still struggling, especially with high costs due to inflation. So we're leveraging this historic surplus to get money into the pockets of Californians. Other areas of financial relief include public transportation and childcare for low-income families. Newsom's plan would offer these services for an even further subsidized rate, if not free of charge for a limited time. A further $1,500 in relief checks is proposed for hospital and nursing home staff who have been delivering care to the patients during this crisis. Over $1 billion would also be set aside to help residents pay their past due utility bills, including electricity and water. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos criticized President Biden over a tweet that said inflation could be brought down by taxing wealthy corporations. Biden earlier in the day tweeted, "You want to bring down inflation? Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share." Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell also warned this week that getting inflation under control could cause some economic pain, but remains his top priority. Powell said he couldn't promise a so-called soft landing for the economy, as the Fed raises interest rates to tamp down price increases running near fastest pace in more than 40 years. During an interview, Powell stated, "So a soft landing is really just getting back to 2% inflation, while keeping the labor market strong." On top of the list for his second-term priorities will be to control price inflation that in April ran at an 8.3% annual rate, just off a more than 40-year high posted in March.
Brings the a breakup along the river system and the ice goes out in the Sound, but it's equally exciting because that's when the barges come. So you haven't had fuel since the fall. So think about what that means to these communities, whether you're Fort Yukon at $7.25 a gallon or No Attack at $11 a gallon. And you're now locked into a spring fuel barge delivery where they're anticipating that the increases will be $1.50, but not just $1.50 that you're transitioning into, but you flip the switch on that now. These are the everyday realities that people are facing. So you can't afford to fuel your boat to go fishing. You can't afford to put fuel into a snow machine or a four-wheeler to go hunting. So this is real. This is real. Now you're going to hear my colleagues talk a lot about the
Okay, we're in a legislative process. We have a deadline for keeping government open. We have a lively negotiation. It has to be bipartisan. We want it to be bipartisan, but in the Senate, you need 60 votes.
Also, everybody, California's budget surplus could mean residents will receive $1,100 stimulus checks this year. According to a California state governor, the surplus amount will be enough to give every Californian a $1,125 tax rebate, or $4,000 for a family of four.
You're telling Noah about the flood. I didn't get what I wanted in the bill. So I say to my members, yeah, that's a negotiation, and that's the way it is. And look at what is in the bill and what it does for America's working families, what it does for Ukraine, what it does, that so much needs to be done as opposed to what you don't like about the bill.
Now, the money would help so many people that are struggling to get by right now as the crisis continues to